Hey there. How you doing? Me? The world's burning down and I'm roasting marshmallows. Why don't you join me? Because this is We Told You So. Episode 106. I would make a terrible radio show host. So I recently talked about how Steve Bannon at CPAC threw out the salute that the Republicans are all doubling down on. And even the neo-Yahtzees around the country are saying, it's a bit excessive at this point. That's a little too much Yahtzee for us. But you know what else they did at CPAC? They handed out these dumb little pamphlets called the Third Term Project for Trump at 2028 and beyond. And they have him dressed like fucking Julius Caesar or something. Tell me you don't want him to be a king or an emperor. They've been sitting here for years claiming that Obama and Biden were trying to be emperors, yet they're literally dressing up their orange Jesus as one. But once again, I've stated, he most likely will not even last till 2028. He's got massive cognitive decline, and his triglycerides are in the thousands. But tell me something, why do these Republican-made things always seem to look very similar to shit like this? It's like sometimes they pretend they're not Yahtzees, and then other times they shout it from the rooftops. I mean, pick a lane, guys. And meanwhile, while they're talking about trying to give Dumpy a third term, they even talked to people at CPAC who said they don't support that opinion. Pollsters were talking to random people at CPAC and found that for the most part, the people were respectful of the Constitution that limits a president to 2 terms. So Dumpy and his cronies are announcing this crap at CPAC, and even their own followers are like, nah, we're good. After 5 years being one of the headliners on MSNBC, Joy Reid was taken off the air and she was fired. She broke down in tears in a video where she said that her show had value. Which it did, especially because she won awards for it. This is just the most recent example of the media bending the knee to the Trump administration and getting rid of people they don't like who are critical of them. This already has people saying they're no longer going to support or watch MSNBC, which, I mean, I never did anyway. But I can guarantee you the only reason they haven't done it to Rachel Maddow yet is because she's a bigger figure and it would absolutely destroy their network. Recently at the governor's ball, the Army Choir sang "Do You Hear the People Sing" from Les Miserables in protest against kingship. The entire thing was a protest against the current administration, and yet the White House was too stupid to get that. People like Dan Scavino, who used to work for the Trump administration, said it was a great honor and it was a wonderful experience. To which Jim McGovern, always good with the clapbacks, said they picked Les Mis, a musical about standing up to tyranny. They protested you at your own event and you were too stupid to get it. This reminds me of the situation of those mass protests in the street, the women's marches that took place after Trump got his first inauguration, and Trump cluelessly claimed that people were marching in the street in support of him. I don't know if it was just his narcissism talking, but these people really are that stupid. Following up on his greatest achievement ever of renaming a body of water, Trump now wants to sell $5 million gold cards to foreigners who want citizenship. So while he and the other MAGA completely ran on the campaign of deporting and getting rid of all foreigners, he's not only devised a plan in order to make himself more money, but to allow only rich immigrants. And ironically, as he starts that Ponzi scheme, the current richest immigrant we have in this country just had his net worth drop by $22 billion as he continues to drive unease into the market. And people are starting to understand by defacing his charging stations. Meanwhile, the MAGA House recently passed their budget, getting ready for enormous tax and spending cuts. In other words, cutting everything for the American people, like their benefits and their health care, and then cutting taxes for the rich. Their budget resolution calls for $4.5 trillion in tax cuts for the wealthy, while raising the taxes on the rest of us, while they scrounge for pennies under the couch by cutting people's benefits. And once again, we continue to find out who the real groomers are, when yet another conservative author/teacher was just charged with molesting a student at a private Christian school. Ironically, in 2023, the exact same guy shared a video on X complaining about drag queens supposedly grooming your kids. As usual, surprise, surprise, it's not the drag queens that are the problem. And finally, as we all knew was going to happen anyway, Dumpy is taking the side of Russia, the aggressor, in the war on Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron met with Trump right after Trump sided with Russia against Ukraine and Europe at the United Nations. How sad is it that we are supposed to be the greatest country on earth when France and the rest of Europe is having to step in because our inept, senile, dumbass leader is siding with the bad guys? He is blaming the victim for being attacked. And now France has to try to step in and take the place of the good guys because we've lost that status. We instead decided to re-elect a moldy omelet wearing a diaper, who is continuing to support a country who has been our known enemy for several decades. But then again, once you realize where his loyalties actually lie, everything seems to make a lot more sense. It was never about America first, guys. It was always about Russia first, with himself as a very close second. This has been We Told You So. I really wish arteriosclerosis would get back from vacation.